What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about a Batman Arkham Asylum remake. Now, nothing's been said, nothing's confirmed. I don't want to give people the wrong idea, but I made a tweet over on Twitter. I'm back on Twitter, and I'm already making waves over there. Podcast Now 23, by the way, is the new Twitter handle, and I simply said, it's only a matter of time till this classic gets a remake, and it started to pick up steam, and I thought, you know what? This would be a really fun, I think, video to kind of explain myself, go over what I was talking about, because I do think some people got the wrong idea. I'm not actually advocating for it, okay? With all of these remakes that we've recently gotten, with Dead Space, Resident Evil, well, look, I actually think the remakes have done extremely well, okay? Dead Space, I have such a love for the original game, and I think the remake does an absolutely spectacular job. Resident Evil, I think, is a fantastic remake as well. I was never as in love with RE4 as, the rest of the population of the world, but I think they do extremely well. But what's the theme there, right? It's making a remake off of a game that is highly debatable if it needs one. You could even go to The Last of Us Part 1, right, and say, and there was a huge discussion, including from me, does The Last of Us, a game that's not even 10 years old, even right now, did that game need a remake last fall? And, I mean, the answer is, I guess it got one, but it's up to you to decide if it needed one or not. So for Batman Arkham Asylum, this was just something that kind of popped in my head. Did the tweet, should it get a remake? How would all of that stuff work? Will it actually happen? I actually think the odds of it happening one day are rather high. It's almost like, does Warner Bros. Go back to the drawing board at some point, maybe after Suicide Squad Kill a Justice League, and say, all right, we need like a bankable product? I think it's likely that they could end on, okay, well, let's go back in time. I do think you need to start pushing things forward. I know, obviously, there's all the discussion of when's the next Batman game, right? When's whatever game comes next? Well, obviously, you're going to need to find a replacement for Kevin Conroy. We'll get to that issue, I guess, with these Arkham games in a second. But I would personally prefer new games. It's always kind of how I go about things. If it's a debate between remaking a classic, a legendary game, versus just making a brand new game, I'll take the risk. I mean, it's easy for me to say. I'm just a consumer. I'm just a player of it. These people are making it, and they need the money, but I would always take the new thing. So give me that Wonder Woman game, obviously. Give me an Aquaman game. Give me a Superman game, obviously, right? We need that eventually. Give me those games versus a remake. But I think considering, well, number one, we live in a world of remakes, and number two, we live in a more modern world of games that aren't too old getting remakes. Now, actually, Arkham Asylum is kind of old, right? I think it's turning 14 years old this August, so it's getting up there. It's older than The Last of Us. It's around the same age as Dead Space. It's a little bit younger than Resident Evil, but we're entering this era where games that came out, say, 2007 to even like Last of Us going all the way to 2013, we're living in a world where those games are all fair play. So I don't think it's impossible at all. In fact, I kind of think it's likely. Now, in terms of how it works, it's actually pretty tough, right? Because one common theme you can think of with specifically Dead Space and Resident Evil is there were some changes. There were actually a lot of changes. Dead Space, notoriously, Isaac talks. So literally a character, the main character, the character you play as, that didn't talk throughout the entirety of the original game, now talks. So I don't think it hurts it in any way, but it's just new dialogue and all of these new things you have to kind of throw in. Resident Evil 4 took out scenes, added scenes, changed boss fights, all sorts of stuff they've changed with Resident Evil 4's remake. Again, I don't think it necessarily hurt the game, but they did change it. Arkham Asylum, it's a slippery slope because I think that game is very, very good. I love that game to death. I've said it before. I think it'll always be my personal favorite Arkham game. I don't think it's the best one of the four. So what do you improve and what do you change, right? Then you have to get into that slippery slope of, okay, now you have to change a classic. And also, then we have to arrive to it's sad we have to talk about it, right? But the Kevin Conroy thing, without him, you can't have any lines that are changed, any new lines, anything like that. You got to keep Batman exactly how he is. Now, I suppose that doesn't mean you can't change other, things that are going on around him. He just has to say the same thing. You could use AI. I'm not a fan of that literally at all, but it's, of course, an option I think modern-day game makers will eventually get into, right? It's something that you have to consider. But again, I think to the popularity of these games, how well they sold, I think we can easily live in a world where within the next 5 or so years, you had Gotham Knights come out, you have Suicide Squad, you have these brand new games releasing, and then somewhere out there, right, whether it's Rocksteady or whether they just get kind of like a third-party team to do it, they remake the Arkham games. Now, again, is that necessary? Not really, but it's a chance to earn money. It's a chance to, I guess, potentially improve these games. I firmly believe the Dead Space remake is the better place to play it than Dead Space, the original. And several of the remakes that we've gotten over the last 10 or so years, they are the definitive place to play it. But then, of course, you struggle with the idea that you could potentially mess it up. And then when you don't have your lead actor, so if you need any lines changed, then that's going to be a kind of an issue. But I do think it's possible, and a world exists where they're making money. They want to do a remake of Asylum City, because you have to think, like, by the time Asylum comes out, City is even older, right? City would be 2011, so maybe you're looking at 2025, 2026. I mean, that's the same age as a lot of other games that get remade, around this time. So you do that, and then eventually, I guess you do Arkham Knight, even though it's so odd to think about that right now. And by the way, I'm not saying this is like a replacement to anything. Like, I know there's obviously always been the talk of Arkham Origins, right, getting some sort of remaster. I'm not saying like this should take priority. This was just a tweet that I thought of in about 20 seconds. It started to gain traction. I thought, well, let's make a video out of it. So that's my thoughts on it. Let me know, do you think it would work? What would you personally change about them? Let me know. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. If you want to follow me over on Twitter, podcastnow23 is my new Twitter handle. I'll leave it as a pinned comment and in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.